My position is that we need tariff-free access to the biggest and most lucrative market in the world, which we had before the Liberal government was elected in 2015. Of course, after the Liberals got in, President Obama started hammering us with new tariffs on softwood lumber that Harper had got lifted. They brought in new Buy America rules, and then it's been one defeat after another. Now,
so
Mark
what would
Carney
you do?
was,
What do you think we should be doing here?
We should reflect on the fact that Mark Carney was elected on one promise, that he would negotiate a win with President Trump by July 21st, and here we are. About a half a year later, his promise is broken. American tariffs have doubled. They've tripled on softwood lumber.
But some of that is because of the president. So I'm genuinely curious. What would you do in dealing with Donald Trump?
I will answer that question, but let's be clear.
Yeah.
Mark Carney said he could handle Donald Trump.
Well, so did you.
So, and I would have if I were Prime Minister right now.
So what should he be doing?
Well, we have to negotiate from a position of strength.
Yeah.
And I have to go back. We need to approve pipelines and natural gas projects and other major resource projects that allow us to ship our single biggest export overseas, so that we are not monolithically dependent on the Americans. We need to get rid of the capital gains tax on reinvestments in Canada to bring back the $500 billion of investment Liberals have driven into the U.S. economy. And then you can sit down with the president and say, look, now we're selling our resources to the Asians, to the Europeans. Now we're bringing back our investment and becoming more sovereign, strong, and self-reliant. Now we're in a position of strength. Now let's negotiate. And that would be a far better approach than what Mr. Carney is doing, which is blocking these projects, keeping all of the Liberal taxes and anti-resource project laws in place of the last 10 years, and giving even more of our investment to the Americans.
Hello, everybody. Today is Tuesday, December 16th. My name is Miloš Krajčnik. This is Canuck News. You guys heard it from the big man, Pierre Poilievre. The Liberal government isn't doing much, guys. And honestly, I mean, we've had the Liberals around for a very long time, so it's easy to point fingers at them right now, consistently. But this really unfolds a much wider national strategy, or lack thereof, that exists, right? We have great schools, for instance, great engineering schools that produce high quality individuals. How many of them stay? Not that many. Why? Because innovation isn't let's say, nurtured in Canada itself. It's all nurtured in the US. And so all of our engineers, all of our STEM graduates, science, technologies, engineering, and mathematics, all go to the US because that's where everything is happening, right? And it's a consistent thing that's been happening, right? It's not just over the last decade, but it's an incessant thing that exists in Canada, right? And we act like there's nothing going on. But the fact is that we produce these great engineers, these great people, and then we have a brain drain going to the U.S., right? And this is exactly what I want to cover today, is this lack of national strategy, right? And we see this in several fronts. The first one here is it's a new subsidy essentially for quantum computer developers, right? And this is a great start, I guess, for a major problem that's happening, because quantum computers and AI is just it's the big new thing. It's going to reshape society around the world, probably over the next 100 years, right? This is a great first step around Canada's general lethargy around AI and any general innovation. Let's get into the article a little first. It says, after watching Canada squander its early advantage in artificial intelligence, the federal government on Monday will unveil a program aimed at supporting key homegrown players in the emerging quantum computing space to ensure they stay here and become industry leaders. And so, I mean, this is exactly what you want. You want people to stay in Canada and innovate in Canada and then what they innovate, that's actually manufactured in Canada and then sold everywhere, right? That's how you develop big companies. Through the initial phase of its Canadian Quantum Champions program, the government will commit up to $23 million apiece to 4 companies that have shown early promise in the field: Xanadu Quantum Technologies of Toronto, Montreal-based Anion Systems, and Photonic Inc. based in Coquitlam, BC, and Sherbrooke's Nord Quantique. This is around like a total of $92 million that's being given to 4 companies. It's not bad. It's a good start. It's not nearly enough investment that has to take place in order for Canada to have an actual AI program that's going to compete globally, right? The program is the first pillar of a $334.3 million commitment in November's budget to support Canada's quantum sector, and could provide hundreds of millions of dollars in further funding if the companies continue to advance toward building industrial scale systems. And so this is funny. So they talk about it building industrial scale systems, right? And there is so much infrastructure that goes behind AI, like data centers, something that Canada is not really focusing on too much. I haven't heard any recent news in the data center space. And I have some really close friends that are in the clean tech space. And data centers are really not anywhere on the roadmap from what I've seen. And so this is a general, let's say, problem that we have within Canada, right? The federal government is funding these 4 companies to keep them in Canada, to keep their engineers here, and to keep the intellectual property from leaving. And that's key, right? You want to have the intellectual property stay in Canada, because if it doesn't, it's just going to go to the US. It's all going to be funded there. It's going to end up being produced there as well. And this is essentially an admission that the federal government is saying, not out loud, but they're essentially having an admission that we're not producing anything of value in the country, right? The article even mentions it. Canada's lost its early advantage in artificial intelligence because it refused to protect domestic champions. We haven't been systematically supporting our engineers to help them stay here, to help them innovate here. Innovation is key. Every society that's blown up over the last couple of years, the reason why they've progressed is because of innovation. It is quite literally because of innovation. Quantum is a little different this time. The government is explicitly saying that the engineers matter, the intellectual property matters, and losing them is a strategic failure. So here's the thing: the instinct is correct, but we have it immediately raises numerous questions. So if Canada is accepting protectionism for quantum engineers, why does it reject the same logic for steel workers, foresters, and manufacturers? These are all strategic industries. So what this is really screwing up for a normal person, if Canada loses quantum talent, these are high-paying engineering jobs leaving, most likely to the US. Innovation is happening elsewhere, most likely in the US. And Canadians are going to become technology consumers, not creators, which we are. Essentially, we are. And this time, Ottawa seems to be trying to want to stop that. And that's great. And they should be wanting to try and stop that. I think, though, that if they wanted a serious AI strategy, they would invest a lot more money into AI than what they're doing. And want to get into this next article because it's going to tie into the first one. So Ottawa's tightening steel tariffs rankle Western Canada. And so with Canadian steel exports to the United States in free fall, Ottawa has taken a series of escalating steps to shore up demand for the country's steel mills by restricting imports of foreign-made steel. These protectionism measures, which will be further tightened in in the coming weeks have been lauded by Canadian steel producers who have seen their business models upended by U.S. President Donald Trump's 50% steel tariff. But the measures are also drawing criticism from steel users, particularly in Western Canada, who warn of shortages and rising costs for construction materials and manufacturing inputs if they're forced to buy from Eastern mills rather than bringing it in product by ship or at world prices. In effect, the federal government is responding to U.S. protectionism with its own turn inward, forcing a marriage between different regional steelmakers that have mostly operated independently for decades. And so the biggest problem here, and this is something that I've mentioned previously, is that Canada's main problem in all of this is that the country is so big and there is no infrastructure connecting east to west. And it's the same thing with steel. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for it to be easier to transport or to buy steel, for British Columbia to buy steel from China or from India by boat, than for there to be a heavy rail, a modern heavy rail that's connecting Ontario with all of Canada, basically, and for Canada to be supplying itself with its own steel, right? This is really what you want. You want to supply yourself with steel. Steel isn't optional. It's in everything. It is quite literally the backbone of manufacturing, of infrastructure, transit, defense, construction. It's in everything. It's in everything. And this is why the US has tariffs on steel, because they want to shore it up, because it is a strategic resource. You don't want to be reliant on another country for steel. You simply don't. Ottawa is obviously, so they're tightening the steel tariffs to protect the domestic producers because of this. But protecting the steel isn't the problem, right? So we can subsidize, and that's going to be great, right? We can protect the steel producers, but if you can't support the rest of the nation with that steel by getting it there, what's the point, right? So we need to pair protection with modern rail capacity, with predictable pricing structures and national logistics planning. And this is something, so it says it in the article here, right? Here we go. Here it says, part of the problem is transportation costs. According to several importers, it costs around $50 a ton to bring steel across the Pacific and in through the port of Vancouver. That's compared to $150 to $200 a ton to bring steel from Ontario to Vancouver by rail. That's embarrassing, guys. We can't be letting that happen, right? And so what is this? So this isn't strategy that the Liberals are providing. This is improvisation, right? They're making policies to make it it's PR. It's essentially PR. They're making policies to make it seem like they're doing something useful, but they can't execute on it because there's no infrastructure. There's no infrastructure, and it's constant, right? So there's no infrastructure for Albertan energy to connect the entire country. There's no infrastructure. There's no Alberta pipelines going eastward. There's no Alberta pipelines going westward. There's no rail connecting Ontario steel mills to the rest of the country. And so, we can't even trade within and amongst ourselves because we have no infrastructure to do it. This is such short-sighted thinking, and it's always just policies. It's Liberals coming up with new policies and nothing ever coming of it. And so what does this mean? What's this essentially going to mean? It's going to mean it's going to mean higher construction costs, which obviously that's something exactly what we need with this population crisis that we have right now, and the cost of living is just disastrous. We have delayed infrastructure projects because we can't ship anything to ourselves. Fewer manufacturing jobs in the West because, again, we can't manufacture anything. And just more regional resentment. There's no national unity because we can't support ourselves. We are we've put ourselves in a position of reliance, of dependence. And we can't have that. Who's failing us? Our transport policy is failing us. It hasn't modernized rail. That's embarrassing. Our industrial policy is also failing us because it's not integrating the provinces. It's reactive instead of planning. And it's always like this. There's never anything cohesive going on in Canada. And I want to show you something. And this is a point I really try and bring home all the time. Look where we are. We're a major resource-rich country. Who is producing the most steel in the world? China, by and large, most steel. Then we have India, which, I mean, given the size of the two, India should probably, increase this quite a bit. Japan, major industrial nation. The U.S., the U.S. probably should have much higher, quite honestly, in steel production, realistically. Russia. Why does Russia have so much steel? Why? Because it buys its own goods. Russia actually has a major industrial base. People don't really know about it. Everybody thinks that Russia is just an energy producer. It is by and large, but it also has a very major industrial base. They make satellites, they make rocket ships, they have their fully independent military industrial complex that quite literally they just manufacture everything there. It has its own auto industry. Everything is sourced within Russia that's produced in Russia, right? South Korea, another So if you want to be a serious nation with strategic resources such as steel, and Canada has a lot of it, you need to be manufacturing it at scale. Canada is not. Germany. Oh, what happened with Germany? 2020. So this was COVID. We had a COVID dip with Germany, and then it went back. Oh, and then sabotage event on Nord Stream pipeline. Boom. Sanctions on Russian energy. Boom. And now Germany is deindustrializing slowly. We had a little uptick, but it's slowly deindustrializing. This is what I mean. Canada, we have our own natural resources. We have our own energy. We have our own steel. Look where we are. 16th isn't even that bad, but we should be in the top 10. We should be a major manufacturing hub for the Western world. This is where our competitive advantage can happen because we have our own energy, we have our own steel. We have good engineers. We're just not keeping them in the country. This is how you build a sovereign nation. This is how you build a sovereign economy, an independent economy of other nations. And you build much stronger trade links that way as well, right? I wanted to show you guys this because I think this is a very important chart to have a look at. And then I also wanted to show you this. What I meant about deindustrialization of Germany is because, well, VW is closing VW is closing a major factory in Dresden, and they're going to be letting go of like 15,000 people. So I'm not going to get into this article. I just wanted to show you this. It matters. Steel matters. The cost of manufacturing matters. And owning your own steel and owning your own energy resources are a part of that. Canada has all of this, and we're not capitalizing at all, like quite literally at all. And this is just Google, quite honestly, just a quick Google deindustrialization in Germany. What does it say? Germany's deindustrialization, highlighted by the Financial Times, involves a shift from its manufacturing powerhouse status due to soaring energy costs, especially Russian gas dependence, increased global competition in China, fragmented globalization, burdensome regulations, demographic changes, whole slew of things, but energy costs are one of them. Canada can quite literally never have that problem. It's quite simple. We can quite literally never have that problem. Why are we not capitalizing on this? Why? There's quite literally no reason. Not only can we capitalize on this on things like an auto industry, we can capitalize on this for a domestic military industrial complex as well, for instance. So what do these two articles show us? The Quantum shows Canada is finally understanding that talent must be protected. The Steel article is showing that Canada protects industry without building the system around it, which is it's the infrastructure problem that I was discussing earlier, right? So one is a national failure. So Canada has the resources, we have the talent, we have the land, but we just don't have the strategy, right? There's no cohesive strategy. And the uncomfortable truth is free trade is not a religion, it's a tool. It's a tool to progress your own society, right? And every serious country protects critical inputs, skilled labor, and strategic industries. The US does it. Germany used to do it, right? They used to do it. France does it. China absolutely does it. They do not care. Canada just talks about doing it. We come up with policies. We come up with new red tape. And so Canada keeps asking, how do we make things cheaper, right? But that's not the question that Canada needs to be asking itself. The real question is, how do we make things possible again? Because without steel, lumber, and engineers, there's no economy to optimize, right? There's no housing to be built. And obviously, there's no sovereignty to defend and protect. This is all I have for you guys today. Stay informed, stay curious, and God bless Canada.